the unsolved mystery of Noah's Ark. Has it actually been found? Who found it and where? Without much ado, let's look at this in detail. Mount Ararat is a snow-capped and dormant compound volcano in Turkey's easternmost provinces, consisting of two major volcanic cones: Greater Ararat, which is the highest peak in Turkey at 16,854 feet, and Lesser Ararat at 12,782 feet, and the Armenian Plateau, which spans about 40 kilometers. It is surrounded by bleak terrain, rising above the Tigris River's headwaters. Because of the thin air above, mountaineers bring a canister of oxygen with them. Lightning strikes are a very common occurrence on the peak. One of the Bible's greatest mysteries is the existence of Noah's Ark. According to the Bible, the gigantic ship that rescued mankind from a catastrophic flood is buried somewhere in the Ararat Mountains. Several teams led by different explorers have searched the Ararat Mountains for the Ark in recent years. Surprisingly, however, two distinct teams believe they may have discovered the Ark in two locations 17 miles apart. In 1969, a Turkish businessman named George Hegopian claimed that the Ark is buried beneath a persistent 23 square mile glacier on Mount Ararat's northeast slope. He was a small lad in 1906 when he believed he saw Noah's Ark trapped in a melted glacier. Alfred Lee, an archaeological illustrator, was given a description of the vessel he observed. It looked like a long boss, according to Hegopian. It was rectangular in shape, with slightly rounded corners. The sides were slightly slanted inward. The roof was essentially flat, with only a little incline, and one end had a stair-like contraption. He was hauled up onto this ladder by his uncle, and he stepped up onto the roof. There were holes all the way down the middle of the roof. It was dark as he went in, and when he screamed, his voice reverberated and echoed inside, and it felt hollow. When he returned to the place a few years later, the ice and snow had taken over. Lee encountered Ed Davies, a U.S. Army official stationed in Iran, who was in the U.S. Army in 1943, 17 years apart in 1986. Davies also claimed to have seen the Ark during flight over the mountain in the same general area as George Hegopian's sightings, and his description of it was nearly identical to George Hegopian's, with one exception. The Ark had apparently been broken in half by the receding and advancing ice over the years. Inside, Davies described 3 decks with enormous cages on the bottom deck, smaller cages on the second deck, and a venting system on the ceiling with enormous holes. He claimed to be able to see the light and ventilation all the way down to the bottom deck. Despite the fact that Hegopian and Davies were unable to determine the exact places, their stories piqued the interest of Shockey, an amateur archaeologist who, after reviewing classified US satellite pictures, launched an expedition to Mount Ararat in April 1989. He and his guides climbed the south side of the mountain for 3 days, but the Turkish government barred them from climbing the north side. Ahmet, a Turkish guide, continued on his own to approximately 16,000 feet in elevation. He observed something half buried in the snow at that height and snapped a picture of the end of the rectangular object with a peak roof just 300 yards distance. Ahmet mistook it for a chicken coop, while Shockey believed Ahmet had seen a glimpse of Noah's Ark ruins. He showed the photo to forensic anthropologist Dr. Jim Ebert, who said it was clearly man-made as well. When Shockey returned to Ararat in 1990, the site had already been blanketed in snow, and whatever was left had been entirely obscured by the ice. Shockey called it a day, but he was still confident he had found Noah's Ark's last resting place. David Fasold, an author and Ark researcher, disagrees with Shockey's views. A former merchant marine officer and merchant salvage expert, he believes the Ark is at another second location, buried 17 miles south of Mount Ararat. He and his team explored the site during a separate study in the late 1980s and uncovered several iron fittings and pins spaced 20 to 30 inches apart. The iron fittings were found to be 94.84% man-made when scanned by electron microscopes at Los Alamos National Laboratory, and from above, they created a characteristic pattern of crossing lines similar to the arch structure. The boat's length and width, according to Fasold, were 515 feet and 85 feet, respectively, as reported in the Bible. Other researchers, on the other hand, believe David Fasold discovered the ruins of an ancient Mongol fort, while others believe it is a geological structure. The mound has been designated as the official resting place of Noah's Ark by the Turkish government. Wyatt was an American adventurer who promoted the Durupina site as the location of Noah's Ark, as well as almost 100 other Bible-related purported discoveries. Scientists, historians, biblical experts, and some creationists have all condemned him. In 1960, he spotted a photo in Life magazine of the Durupina site, a boat-like object on a mountain near Mount Ararat. Following considerable conjecture among evangelical Christian circles that this could be Noah's Ark, Wyatt launched his profession as an amateur archaeologist. From 1977 until his death in 1999, he made over 100 trips to the Middle East, his interest widening to take in a wide variety of references from the Old and the New Testament. Wyatt claimed to have unearthed various locations and artifacts related to the Bible and biblical archaeology by the time he died in 1999. Professional archaeologists and biblical experts, on the other hand, did not believe him. For instance, the Garden Tomb Association of Jerusalem stated in a letter they issued to visitors on request. The Council of the Garden Tomb Association totally refutes the claim of Wyatt to have discovered the original Ark of the Covenant or any other biblical artifact within the boundaries of the area known as the Garden Tomb Jerusalem, though Wyatt was allowed to dig within this privately owned garden on a number of occasions, the last occasion being the summer of 1991. Staff members of the association observed his progress and entered his excavated shaft. As far as we are aware, nothing was ever discovered to support his claims, nor have we seen any evidence of biblical artifacts or temple treasures. According to Israel Antiquities Authority's archaeologist Joe Zayas, Wyatt is not an archaeologist and he has never conducted a legally permitted dig in Israel or Jerusalem. Excavation requires at least a degree in archaeology, which he does not have. Despite his claim to the contrary, his claims fall into the trash category found in some tabs. Wyatt's official organization, the Wyatt Archaeological Research, WAR, claims that the IAA has been aware of the excavations since 2002 and has provided verbal licenses for the majority of them as well as official permit to all war excavations. Nevertheless, the only evidence of war involvement in the legitimate excavation sanctioned by the IAA related to war's path funding of a 2005 dig. Evangelicals have also been critical of Wyatt's claims. For instance, Answers in Genesis called Wyatt's claims fraudulent, and David Mellin, a Seventh-day Adventist professor of archaeology, addressed the issue of Wyatt's Noah's Ark and anchor stones with the following words. While the Durupina site is about the right length for Noah's Ark, it is too wide to be Noah's Ark. Wyatt has claimed that the boat-shapedness of this formation can only be explained by it being Noah's Ark. But both Scher and Morris have offered other plausible explanations. Likewise, Wyatt has argued that the standing stones he has found are anchors, while Terrian is aware of similar stones outside the Durupina site area that were pagan cultic stones, later converted by Christians for Christian purposes. What is your thought on the discovery of Noah's Ark? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel and share with friends and family on social media. You may equally click on the video displayed here for more interesting biblical archaeology videos. Thank you very much for watching.